Hello! Today I'm going to give an argument with the conclusion that all atheists should delete their channels and stop criticizing Christianity. Now the point of this video isn't actually to cause that to happen, rather, I just think that there's actually a strong argument for that conclusion, and I'm honestly just curious to see where an atheist would disagree with that argument's train of logic. They obviously have to if they're going to keep their channel up. Now let's start by looking at Pascal's wager. We're trying to maximize utility, which means we're trying to see which courses of action maximizes good for us. The decision we're looking at is whether we should wager on Christianity. The amount of utility we get by wagering on Christianity is the product of the probability of Christianity being true and the utility received by being a faithful Christian, which is infinity because a Christian will go to heaven, plus the product of the probability that Christianity is false and the utility received by being a deluded Christian. That totals to infinity. The amount of utility we get by not wagering on Christianity is the product of the probability of Christianity being true and the utility received by being an incorrect non-Christian, plus the product of the probability that Christianity is false and the utility received by being a correct non-Christian. That totals to negative infinity. So the action which is better for us is obviously to wager on Christianity. That's the argument in a nutshell. I have severe problems with this argument. Firstly, there are other religions besides Christianity. A Muslim could just as effectively use Pascal's wager to argue for Islam. Secondly, wagering on Christianity appears to involve the actual belief that Christianity is true. But whether I like it or not, I am not convinced by the arguments for Christianity. Therefore, it seems that I simply am unable to wager on Christianity. And even if I could, it seems immoral, or otherwise impermissible to change my beliefs on the basis of how much it helps me, rather than on the basis of evidence. And another point, would God even want me to believe in him purely on the basis of selfish motivations? That seems hardly likely. So Pascal's wager, despite its attempts to push me towards Christianity, ultimately fails. I actually think that those are valid criticisms of Pascal's wager, and I could totally understand why it may fail to push you to Christianity. However, it seems that Pascal's wager can stop an atheist from pulling people out of Christianity. Here's my thinking. How much utility does a Christian have on average? Well, it's a product of the probability that Christianity is true and the infinite reward they would get for being a Christian. Coolio. Now, if they deconvert, how much utility do they have now? Well, they do have some utility. I mean, they don't need to get up early on Sunday mornings or anything, but their utility is now merely finite. They lost that on average infinite utility that they previously had. So the transition from Christian to non-Christian has a net utility on average of negative infinity. To put that in perspective, torturing someone for 1,000 years has a negative but finite utility. It doesn't even remotely compare to negative infinite utility. So if a YouTube channel tends to cause deconversions, then it promotes negative infinite utility. If I knew my YouTube channel tended to cause people to be tortured for thousands of years, I would delete it right away. Thus, if a channel tends to cause deconversions, it should be wiped off the internet as soon as possible. That's all very interesting, but what about those objections we raised earlier? Will they stop this version of Pascal's wager? Well, no. Let's start with the many gods objection. This doesn't help the atheist out at all, but it can help out other religions, like, say, Islam. Muslims can continue trying to convert Christians just fine. They believe that their religion will lead people to paradise. So Muslims trying to convert Christians or vice versa are just individuals who are trying to improve the chances of the other at getting infinite utility. The atheist, on the other hand, is just trying to tear down everyone's chances at infinite utility. Now, what about the objection that you can't choose your beliefs? Well, that's obviously not a problem. The Christians, who would have otherwise been deconverted, already believe in Christianity. So you aren't being forced to choose a belief. What the atheist needs to choose is just clicking the delete channel button. That's totally something you could choose. Now, what about the objection that wagering is immoral? Modifying it slightly for the new wager, an atheist might say, I'm obligated to tell people what I see as true and to promote truth. Thus my channel, which teaches the truth of atheism, should stay up no matter what damage it causes. Now, while it's true that there is a moral obligation to teach the truth, there's also a moral obligation to not decrease other people's utility. Take the example of Jim. Jim believes that the millionth digit of pi is 7. That's factually incorrect. But because of aliens or a mad scientist or whatever, it turns out that if you correct that belief, he'll be tortured for 1,000 years. In this case, it seems immoral, very immoral actually, to teach Jim the truth. So there are some times when the stakes can be so high that maximizing someone's utility takes precedence over teaching the truth, and the stakes are never higher than when infinite utility is on the line. Now, would God reward wagering? Well, most Christians probably didn't convert under the pretense of a selfish utilization of Pascal's wager, but the broader point is that the atheist isn't the one who's wagering here, it's a Christian. We want to maximize the chance of our fellow human beings getting infinite utility. The atheist's best shot at that is deleting their channels. That's what they should focus on. Let's throw in one bonus objection. There is some non-zero probability that only atheists will go to heaven because there could be an atheist-loving God or something. So, atheism overall promises infinite utility on average, just like Christianity. So bringing a Christian to atheism doesn't reduce their utility. Now, this logic breaks down. The problem is that if you go from a probability P1 of getting some good to a probability of P2 of getting that good, then the difference in utility is the product of P2 minus P1 and the utility of that good. So getting a Christian to become an atheist will still, on average, result in a net loss of infinite utility. There is a way around this, which I'll call the escape. An atheist could maintain that an atheist-loving God or some such atheist-preferring hypothesis is actually more probable than Christianity. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it would justify not deleting a channel which promotes atheism. Anyways, that's the argument. Here it is more formally, so each step is clearly laid out. If you're an atheist with a channel that criticizes Christianity, then I would love to hear which premise of this argument you dispute. I welcome responses to this video. And if you want to hear any particular atheists respond to this video, please share it with them. Now, while I focused on atheists deleting their channels, this argument does have broader implications about when and how it is okay to criticize a religion. Liz Jackson pointed out that this argument may even entail that atheists should evangelize for a religion to maximize utility. These are all interesting avenues of discussion, but that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, please subscribe or support me on Patreon if you enjoy this content.